Elara moved quietly through the misty forest, her boots sinking slightly into the soft earth. The morning air was cold and damp, carrying the scent of pine and wet leaves. Birds were silent, and even the usual rustle of small animals seemed absent. There was a strange stillness in the woods, a sense that something unseen was watching. She had risen before dawn, as she often did, to gather herbs for the village apothecary. Her basket swung lightly at her side, filled with bundles of chamomile, nettle, and lavender. Elara loved the forest, but she had always known it held secrets. Some people called it haunted. Others whispered of the spirits that roamed the trees at night. She did not know what to believe, but she had learned to respect the forest, to move carefully, and never take more than she needed. As she bent to pick a sprig of mint near a small brook, she heard a sharp, pitiful cry. Her heart jumped. It was not the call of a bird or the rustle of a squirrel. It was a sound of fear, of pain, of desperate pleading. Elara followed the sound, moving cautiously through the thick ferns and twisted roots. Soon, she came upon a small clearing. 2 young wolf pups were caught in hunters' traps, their tiny bodies trembling. One had a deep cut on its leg, the other was tangled in a snare that bit into its fur. The pups looked up at her with wide, frightened eyes, their teeth bared in panic. Elara's heart ached. "Shh. It's okay," she whispered softly, dropping to her knees. "I won't hurt you." The pups did not understand her words, but her calm voice seemed to soothe them slightly. She examined the traps carefully. They were cruel, made of iron and sharpened wood, and it would take careful hands to free them without hurting them further. Her fingers worked quickly but gently, loosening the metal and untying the ropes. The smaller pup whimpered, but she stroked its fur and murmured encouragement. Finally, both pups were free. They huddled close to her, trembling and exhausted. Elara wrapped them in her cloak to keep them warm. She knew she could not leave them in the forest alone. The hunters would return, and the pups could not survive on their own yet. As she carried them toward a hidden grove where she often rested, the forest seemed to change. The air grew heavier, charged with a strange energy. Shadows moved in the corners of her vision, but when she turned, nothing was there. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying voices that were almost words. "Elara." She froze. The sound of her name was soft, almost like a sigh. She looked around, heart pounding. "Who's there?" she called, but no one answered. Only the wind moved, rustling leaves and bending branches. She shook her head, trying to dismiss the feeling of unease. The forest was alive. Yes, but it had always been alive. Still, this was different. She felt a presence, powerful, ancient, and watching. Reaching the grove, she laid the pups down near a small stream. They drank eagerly, then curled up together, exhausted. She knelt beside them, brushing mud from their fur. "You're safe now," she whispered. The sun began to rise, its light barely breaking through the dense mist. Elara stood, brushing herself off, when suddenly, a sound made her blood run cold. A low, deep growl, echoing through the forest. It was unlike any animal she had ever heard. It resonated in her chest, vibrating through the earth itself. From the shadows of the trees, a figure emerged. Tall, imposing, and powerful, with a presence that made her knees weak. Its shape was like a man, but something about it was otherworldly. Golden eyes glowed from beneath a hood, watching her with an intensity that stole her breath. "You have courage," the figure said, voice deep and commanding. "And mercy." Elara took a small step back, holding the pups protectively. Who are you?" she asked, her voice trembling. The figure lowered its hood. His face was sharp and noble, with features that seemed almost sculpted by the wind itself. His eyes were those of a predator, yet not cruel. More like a king judging a subject, yet curious. almost drawn. "I am KL," he said, "Alpha of these woods, protector of all who dwell within." Ilara's mind raced. The stories the villagers told, the warnings about the Alpha King, the forest spirit who could take the form of man or beast flashed through her memory. She had never believed them. But now, standing before her, Kale seemed more real than anything she had ever known. You watched me," she whispered. "You saw me save them." Kale's eyes softened slightly. "Yes. The forest tells me of every act within its borders. You chose mercy, not fear. That is rare among humans." Ilara felt a mix of awe and fear. "Why are you here? Why appear to me?" "Because your actions have consequences," Kale said, stepping closer. Each movement was fluid, graceful, yet powerful, like a predator who does not need to run to dominate. "The pups you saved. They are under my protection. And now, so are you." Ilara swallowed hard. "Me? I'm just a human. I can't." "You can," Kale interrupted, his voice firm yet not unkind. "You have courage, compassion, and the forest sees potential where others see only weakness. You have awakened a choice, one that may change everything." The words filled her with a strange warmth and terror at the same time. She wanted to flee, to run to the safety of her village, yet something held her in place. Something in Kale's eyes, a mixture of power, longing, and expectation, made her feel as though the forest itself had bound her. Suddenly, the pups stirred, whimpering. Kale looked down at them, and his expression shifted. Though still magnificent and commanding, there was a gentleness that seemed almost human. He knelt, placing a hand lightly on their heads. "You are safe," he said softly, "because she chose mercy, not cruelty." Ilara felt her heart ache at the sight of his gentleness toward the pups. It was a side of him she did not expect. They are just babies," she said. "I couldn't leave them to die." "You understood," Kale said, rising to his full height again. "That is why you are here. The forest, and I, have taken notice." The mist thickened around them, and the air seemed to hum with energy. Ilara's heart pounded. "Notice me? What does that mean?" Kyle stepped closer, and the wind seemed to bend around him. "It means that your life is no longer your own," he said, voice low and intimate. "The forest chooses, and so do I." Ilara swallowed hard, fear and curiosity warring inside her. I don't know if I can." Before she could finish, Kale turned his gaze toward the deeper forest. "Danger approaches," he said. His eyes flashed with a golden glow. "The hunters will return. They sense what you have done, and they will not stop until they have claimed what you saved." Ilara's breath caught. She had not thought of the hunters returning so soon. "Then, what should I do?" Kale's gaze returned to her. "Trust in your courage. Trust in what you have done. And trust in me." The words, though simple, carried weight she could feel in her bones. She wanted to trust him, but the forest seemed alive with whispers of warning and doubt. Yet, in his presence, fear did not entirely dominate her heart. The sun finally broke through the mist, casting pale light on the clearing. Kale's figure seemed to shimmer with it, both powerful and unreal. He extended a hand toward her, and in that moment, Ilara realized that her life had shifted irreversibly. She was no longer just a young woman walking through a forest. She had become part of its story, part of its secret. Kale's voice cut through her thoughts. "The forest has chosen you as mine." Ilara's eyes widened. She wanted to protest, to step back, yet the pull she felt toward him, toward the forest, was stronger than her fear. She looked at the pups, huddled together, safe for the moment, and she looked at Kale. and something deep inside stirred a mixture of awe, fear, and something far stranger, a seed of connection that would grow beyond anything she could imagine. She did not yet understand what it meant. But she knew one thing. The forest was no longer just a place she walked through. It had chosen her. And Kale, the Alpha King, was waiting to see what she would do next. The mist thickened once more, swirling around them like living shadows. The forest hummed. And in the distance, the faint crackle of hunters' torches reminded her that danger was never far away. Ilara took a deep breath. She did not yet know the full path ahead, but one thing was certain. Her life had changed forever, and so had the forest. Ilara awoke to the soft rustling of leaves above her. The forest was quiet now, but the air was heavy, as if it remembered the night before. The wolf pups stirred beside her, their small bodies warm against her side. She smiled faintly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Somehow, despite the fear and awe from the previous day, she felt a strange comfort here. Yet that comfort was fragile. The words of the Alpha King, Kale, lingered in her mind. The forest has chosen you. As mine. She still did not fully understand what it meant. How could a human be chosen by a being so powerful, so otherworldly? She rose carefully, keeping the pups close. The mist clung to the ground, and every shadow seemed alive. As she walked toward a small clearing to find fresh water, Kale appeared silently behind her, as if he had emerged from the mist itself. "You move as if you own nothing," he said, his voice calm yet commanding. "Yet you protect everything." Ilara turned, startled. I only want them safe," she said, gesturing to the pups. "It's not about me." Kale studied her, golden eyes gleaming with interest. "True courage is rarely selfless," he said softly. "It is tested in the moments when one could flee but chooses to stay. You stayed. You saved them." Ilara felt warmth rise in her cheeks, though she tried to mask it with a shake of her head. "I was just doing what anyone should do." Kale tilted his head, as if considering her words. "Perhaps," he murmured, "but not everyone has the strength to act. And strength is required here." The forest seemed to lean closer around them. A low hum of magic vibrated through the air, brushing against Ilara's skin. She realized the forest itself was alive in a way she had never felt before. And she realized, with a shiver, that Kale's presence was part of that life, part of its power, its heartbeat. "You must understand," Kale said, stepping closer. "The forest does not forget. Every act is seen. Every choice matters. You have awakened something ancient. Something that cannot be ignored." Ilara looked up at him, her heart beating faster. What is it that I've awakened?" Kale's gaze softened, though it was still piercing. "A bond. A connection between your world and mine. It is rare and dangerous, but it is also necessary." She swallowed hard, unsure what to say. She had never imagined such a thing. She was just a girl who wandered the woods, gathering herbs and tending to small animals. Yet now, she felt as if the forest had chosen her for something far greater than herself. Before she could respond, Kale turned and pointed to the forest. "Follow me," he said. "There are lessons you must learn, if you hope to survive here." Ilara hesitated. "Lessons? About what?" "About courage, about trust, about strength, and about the bond you have begun to form." Despite her unease, she followed him. Kale moved with fluid grace, each step silent, yet commanding. The pups padded along behind her, their small forms darting around roots and fallen branches. They arrived at a part of the forest Ilara had never seen. Trees were older here, their trunks thick and gnarled, covered in moss and vines. The sunlight barely touched the ground, creating shadows that twisted like living shapes. At the center of this grove was a small pond, its surface still and reflective. "This is a place of truth," Kale said, motioning toward the pond. "Here, you will see yourself as you are, and as you could be." Ilara knelt at the edge of the water, gazing at her reflection. For a moment, she saw only herself. Small, human, fragile. Then, the image shifted. She saw herself standing tall, surrounded by wolves. The forest alive and breathing around her. She saw Kale, towering and golden-eyed. Yet somehow, beside her, not above her. She gasped, stepping back. What is this?" "A vision," Kale said. "It shows what is possible. But visions are tests, not guarantees. You must prove that you are worthy of this bond, worthy of this forest, and worthy of me." Ilara's heart pounded. "A test? How do I prove that?" Kale's gaze turned serious. "By facing what you fear most. By standing when others would flee. By choosing mercy when cruelty is easier. And by protecting those who cannot protect themselves." The words reminded her of the pups. She felt a fierce determination rising in her chest. I understand. I will try." Kale nodded once, sharply, and the forest seemed to shift around them. Shadows deepened, and the wind carried a low, eerie whisper. Suddenly, a pack of spectral wolves appeared, glowing faintly in the mist. Their eyes were red, their teeth sharp, and their growls echoed through the grove. Ilara froze. The pups whimpered behind her, pressing close. Kale stepped beside her, towering and calm. "Do not fear," he said. "They are illusions, but they will test your heart." Ilara took a deep breath. She remembered the pups, their helplessness, and the fear in their eyes when she first found them. She could not allow herself to falter. I will not harm them," she said aloud, holding out her hands. The spectral wolves circled her, their growls growing louder. Yet she stood her ground, unwavering, her voice firm. Slowly, one by one, they faded into mist, leaving her standing alone with Kale. "You have courage," Kale said, voice like a warm rumble, "and mercy. You begin to understand the forest, and yourself." Ilara felt relief and a strange pride, but also exhaustion. Her muscles ached, her heart raced, and yet something deeper stirred a connection she could not name. She looked at Kale, and for the first time, she saw not just a king or a predator, but something more, a being capable of trust, perhaps even love. Before she could gather her thoughts, the distant crackle of fire reached her ears. Kale's eyes narrowed. "They have followed you. They sense the pups, and your courage. They will not stop until they have what they came for." Ilara's hands clenched. "Then we have to stop them, somehow." Kale's expression was unreadable. Then he moved, shifting into a form both terrifying and magnificent, a massive wolf, larger than any she had ever seen, with fur dark as midnight and eyes like molten gold. The pups ran to him, whimpering, and he lowered his massive head to nuzzle them. Ilara stared, awe and fear mixing in her chest. "Kale, you're a wolf." "Yes," he rumbled, "and I will defend what is mine." The hunters appeared at the edge of the grove, torches raised, their voices shouting commands. They had no idea what waited for them. Kale's growl rolled like thunder through the forest, shaking the ground beneath their feet. The hunters hesitated, fear flashing in their eyes. Ilara's heart pounded. She wanted to run, yet she also felt a surge of courage. She stepped forward, holding the pups close. "Leave them alone," she shouted, her voice surprisingly steady. Kale's golden eyes met hers. And in that instant, Ilara felt a bond unlike anything she had known. It was as if the forest itself pulsed with their connection strength, trust, and something deeper. She did not need to be afraid. Kale would protect her, but she would stand beside him too. The hunters faltered, uncertain now. The forest seemed to rise against them. Branches twisted, roots moved, and the wind carried Kale's growl like a living force. Elara could feel the power of the forest coursing through her. She did not understand it fully, but she knew one thing. She was no longer just a human in these woods. She was part of its life, its story, its magic. Kyle shifted back into his humanoid form, towering and golden-eyed. He stood before her, and for the first time, he spoke not as a king commanding, but as a partner, a protector, a presence she could trust. "You are brave, Elara," he said softly, "and in your bravery, you have bound yourself to me and to the forest. There is no turning back." Elara swallowed hard, her chest tight with emotion. I don't understand it all, but I trust you." Kale's eyes softened, a rare vulnerability flashing across his sharp features. "Then, we begin," he said. "Together." The pups nestled between them, safe and quiet for the moment. And in the misty forest, the wind whispered through the trees, carrying promises of trials, danger, and a bond that would change both their lives forever. The hunters retreated, but their threat lingered like a shadow. Elara looked at Kael, and despite the fear and uncertainty, she knew one truth. Her life had been forever intertwined with this forest, and with the Alpha King, who had chosen her. The sun barely touched the forest floor when Elara awoke. The wolf pups curled up beside her. Their gentle breaths were a comforting reminder of the lives she had saved and the bond that now tied her to this strange, powerful place. Yet, there was no time for rest. The previous day's events had changed everything. She was no longer just a girl wandering the woods. She was part of the forest's story, part of Kale's world. Kael appeared silently beside her, as he always did, his presence both commanding and protective. In his humanoid form, he looked every bit the king he was, with eyes that seemed to see into her very soul. "Today," he said softly, "you will face the forest as it truly is. The bond you began must now be proven, not through courage alone, but through understanding, loyalty, and heart." Elara rose, steadying herself. Her hands instinctively went to the pups, who nuzzled her fingers. "I will do what I must," she said. She felt a mixture of fear and determination, fear of the unknown, and determination to honor the trust she had begun to share with Kael and the forest. Kael led her deeper into the heart of the forest. The air grew thick with magic, almost tangible, vibrating against her skin. Trees towered like ancient guardians, their roots twisting and curling as if alive. Small streams sparkled with an unnatural clarity, reflecting the soft golden light that filtered through the canopy. Elara could feel the power of the forest flowing through her, urging her forward. Suddenly, a dark shadow moved between the trees. Elara's heart jumped. Her first thought was of the hunters, but the shape was far too large, and its presence different. It exuded strength, yet it was cautious, wary. Kael stopped beside her, his golden eyes narrowing. "They are testing us," he said quietly. "The forest is alive, and it watches our actions. You must show balance, not fear. Mercy, not violence. Courage, not recklessness." Elara nodded, gripping the pups close. She took a deep breath, summoning the calm she had learned in the last days. She stepped forward, speaking softly, her voice carrying through the grove. "We mean no harm," she said. "We only wish to protect and survive." The shadow shifted. Slowly, it revealed itself a massive wolf, even larger than Kael in his wolf form, but with fur as white as snow and eyes that glowed silver. It approached cautiously, circling them, sniffing the air. Kale's voice was steady, a deep rumble. "It is the guardian of this place. Approach with respect, and you may earn its trust." Ilara took another step forward, holding her hands out gently. "We are not your enemies," she whispered. "We only seek peace. We." The white wolf studied her for long moments. Then, slowly, it lowered its head and nudged the pups. Relief washed over her, but she did not relax fully. Kale placed a hand on her shoulder. "You have shown patience and mercy," he said. "These are qualities not all possess." "The forest acknowledges your heart." Ilara felt a warmth in her chest, as if the forest itself had whispered approval. But before she could savor it, movement at the edge of the grove drew her attention. The hunters had returned, their faces twisted with greed and anger. They carried nets, ropes, and weapons, ready to claim the pups and anything else the forest held. Kale's form shifted instantly, towering and formidable in his wolf state. The golden glow in his eyes intensified, reflecting the fury of the forest itself. "Stay behind me," he commanded. "Do not fear. You will witness the strength that loyalty and courage can create." Ilara's heart pounded, but she stood firm. She would not run. She had chosen this path, and she would honor it. The hunters charged, shouting and brandishing their tools, but the forest seemed to rise against them. Roots surged from the ground, entangling their feet. Branches twisted to block their path. The white guardian wolf lunged, her form a blur, forcing the intruders to scatter in terror. Kale let out a thunderous growl that echoed like rolling mountains, shaking the ground. The hunters faltered, fear flooding their hearts as the forest seemed alive with power beyond human comprehension. Ilara watched, awe and fear mixing within her, but also pride. She realized that she had played a part in this. Her courage had awakened the forest's protection. When the hunters fled, disappearing into the distance, Kyle shifted back to his humanoid form. He approached Ilara, his presence both protective and intimate. "You have proven yourself," he said, his voice low, almost tender. "Not just to me, but to the forest. You have shown loyalty, courage, and compassion, qualities that are rare in your kind." Ilara felt her cheeks flush. I only did what felt right," she said softly, her hands brushing over the pups, who were now safe and wagging their small tails. Kale's eyes softened. "And yet, that is enough. More than enough." He took a step closer. The golden light of the sun filtered through the trees, illuminating his form like a figure from an ancient story. "There is one more thing," he said, voice trembling slightly with an emotion she could not name. "One final step. For the bond to be complete." Ilara's heart raced. "What? What step?" she asked. Kale's gaze met hers, deep and unwavering. "You must choose. To accept this bond fully. To accept me as your companion. Not just a protector, but as someone who will share your life. And the life of the forest. The pups. The guardians. The magic itself. You must choose willingly. From your heart. Without fear." Ilara's mind spun. She had not expected this. The bond, the connection, the forest's power. She had understood courage and mercy. But love, partnership, destiny? Could a human truly stand beside such a being? Could she accept the weight of the forest, the pups, and Kale himself? Yet, as she looked at the golden eyes before her, she felt something stir deep inside, something familiar and undeniable. It was trust, yes, but it was more a pull she could not resist, a connection that had grown stronger each day, forged by courage, compassion, and shared trials. She knelt, placing her hands lightly on Kale's chest. The warmth of his presence spread through her like sunlight. I choose," she whispered. I choose you, and I choose the forest. I will protect them, and I will stand by you. Kale's golden eyes softened, a flash of emotion crossing his sharp features, relief, joy, and something far deeper. He lowered his head slowly, close enough that their foreheads nearly touched. Then it is done, he said. His voice was tender, commanding, and intimate all at once. From this day forward, you are mine, not as a captive, but as my mate, my equal, and my heart. The pups yipped in excitement, bounding around them, while the white guardian wolf circled and nodded, as if acknowledging the union. The forest itself seemed to exhale, the wind carrying a song of approval through the trees. Sunlight sparkled on the streams and leaves, and the air was alive with magic, pulsing around them like a living heartbeat. Ilara felt tears prick at her eyes, not of fear, not of sadness, but of awe and acceptance. She had found a place where she belonged, a bond not forced, but chosen. She looked up at Kale, at his powerful form, his golden eyes, and realized that the forest, the pups, and this extraordinary being had changed her forever. Kale reached out, gently brushing a lock of hair from her face. You have saved them, he said softly, and in doing so, you have saved me. The forest has been bound by curse for centuries, and yet, you have brought life, mercy, and hope where there was despair. Ilara smiled, her heart full. We saved each other, she said. Kale's lips curved in the faintest smile, and the bond between them solidified in a way that was more than magic. It was heart, trust, and devotion intertwined. The pups yipped happily, nuzzling both of them, and the forest seemed to shimmer with life and renewal. Yet even as the morning light bathed the grove, there was a stir in the shadows beyond. Something ancient, unseen, watched them curious, perhaps even wary. Their journey was not yet complete. But for now, in this moment, Ilara and Kale stood together, bonded by choice, courage, and heart. The forest had chosen, and so had they. Ilara took Kale's hand, feeling the strength in his grip, the warmth of his presence. Whatever comes next, she whispered, we face it together. Kale's eyes glowed golden. Together, he agreed. And in the forest, the wind carried the sound of a promise of love, loyalty, and the eternal bond of two souls chosen by fate itself. The wolf pups scampered around them, playful and free, while the guardians of the forest watched silently from the shadows. For the first time in centuries, the forest felt whole, alive with life and hope. And in that magical moment, Ilara knew that her heart and Kale's were forever entwined. The forest, the pups, and the Alpha King, the bond, was complete. Yet deep in the shadows, a faint rustle reminded them that adventure, danger, and destiny still awaited. But together, there was nothing they could not face.